not reality, real life. And for 60 minutes, you are the star. Channel1Yuma.com presents Human Life, a television show about life and lifestyles in Yuma County, starring people and places you may already know or get to know on Human Life. Cable Channel 2 every day at 8 a.m., noon, and 8 p.m. Not reality, real life, human life from Channel1Yuma.com. Channel 1 Yuma and Human Life presents Biography of John Wayne with Tina Clark.
I want to tell you about one of the most dearly beloved personalities in Yuma that ever visited Yuma, and that is John Wayne. He was here filming at the prison, at the Yuma Territorial Prison, The Three Musketeers, the movie with Jimmy Cagney. He literally embraced the whole community. The community was able to peek in on the filming. And John Wayne and Jimmy Cagney, of course, were dear friends and great characters. And they stayed during the shooting at the San Carlos Hotel.
Hotel San Carlos.
Hello, I'm Tina Clark, Yuma's city historian and archaeologist, and I'm here standing in front of the beautiful San Carlos Hotel that is really a landmark here in Yuma. It had two really important firsts. One, it was the first Art Deco hotel built in Yuma. Typically from the turn of the century, all of the buildings were sort of a territorial style. So this had great, beautiful architectural details. The second thing is that it was the first air-conditioned building in Yuma, and it was the home and a visiting spot, very famous for a lot of movie stars who were here in the desert areas making films, getting married themselves, and actually just participating in Yuma's great weather during the winter. So here we are standing in front of room 512, and that was John Wayne's room, his regular. And don't forget, he was really close to the elevator. We will go in and take a tour, but I do want to tell you that this hotel, when it was converted to housing, all of the rooms were remodeled so they could have as many tenants here as possible. So the big rooms, the big suites, were actually cut in half most of the time, and the rooms are all roughly the same size. So when John Wayne was here in 512, it was the largest suite that they had. It was called the Penthouse Suite. We have a famous story about John Wayne. He was one of, like I said, the best customers of the bar here at the San Carlos. He was filming a movie called Red River at Yuma Territorial Prison. He had his horse corralled right outside the San Carlos. He'd had a few drinks, so what he did is just bring his famous horse into the lobby. He put him on the elevator and up to the roof garden. And it was a huge news story here, and it was sort of a surprise to the management of the hotel. The filming of the movie at the prison was probably one of the highlights of John Wayne's career, because literally the community of Yuma poured out into the parking lots at the prison, and he visited with everyone. So we have a soft spot in our heart for John Wayne here in Yuma. You should just watch this biography of John Wayne right now, because it is a treasure.
America, 1907. It was the time of a rough-riding president, of a vanquished people, and of an immigrant's dream. It was a time of scientific discovery, of first flights, and of tamed frontiers. In the heart of the Midwest, on a land once teeming with buffalo, America found its destiny. It was here in Winterset, Iowa, that John Wayne was born as Marion Robert Morrison. on May 26, 1907. His father, Clyde, was a well-liked pharmacist who was known for his generosity and good nature. His mother, Molly, was a domineering woman who was unhappy with her husband's lack of ambition. In 1912, the family grew to include a second son, Robert. But Clyde's poor health caused mounting financial pressures that overshadowed the joys of a growing family. Heart trouble and chronic asthma forced Clyde to close his pharmacy and declare bankruptcy. The resulting tension in the household was not lost on little Marion. He began to suffer from insomnia and ran away from home more than once, as his parents' arguments became more heated. In 1914, the Morrison family moved to Palmdale, California, where the ever-optimistic Clyde hoped his health and his luck would improve. He swapped his pharmacy work for homesteading on an 80-acre plot of land owned by his father. But most of California's fertile farmland was already taken, and what he found was an arid patch of desert that would be difficult to farm. After 2 years of this desolate existence, in 1916 the troubled Morrison family packed up and moved to Glendale, California, a small community on the outskirts of Hollywood. But relocation did little to solve the family's financial problems. As his parents struggled to make ends meet, Marion learned to be self-reliant and took a morning paper route to pay for his school clothes and help with some of the household expenses. Though the family remained in Glendale, mortgage foreclosures and eviction notices forced the Morrisons to move 8 times in only 5 years. The constant moving made it hard for young Marion to make friends. Insecure and something of a loner, he was especially self-conscious when it came to his name. Marion's best friend was his huge Airedale dog, an oversized companion who would offer a solution to his most troubling predicament. 11-year-old Duke relished the attention and camaraderie of the firemen who had given him his new name. Brave and sturdy men who faced trouble head-on and risked their lives for the safety of others. It was these same traits that Duke found compelling in the silent movie heroes he watched at the Glendale Theater. Saturday afternoons would be spent riding beside his cowboy idols, men like the roughshod Harry Carey, a lone spirit who fought for the common good and prevailed against all odds. Living only miles from the heart of the film industry, the star-struck boy could also watch his heroes' exploits in real life. When Hollywood studios brought their casts and crews out to film in Glendale's Verdugo foothills. Sometimes the film crew would even let Duke do small jobs around the set, and afterwards join the men for a box lunch. In 1921, 14-year-old Duke entered Glendale Union High School. By now, the wiry boy had shot up to nearly 6 feet and was maturing into a handsome and athletic young man. After graduation, Duke was more determined than ever to make something of himself. With his family still in financial trouble, it was his physical assets rather than his good grades that offered him the opportunity of a college education. In 1925, the burly athlete was awarded a football scholarship at the University of Southern California and began courses in pre-law. Joining the Sigma Chi fraternity, he agreed to bus tables and wash dishes in exchange for room and board. The 6'4" athlete became well known on campus and enjoyed the wild parties and special attention granted to football players and fraternity men. His good looks and good manners also made him popular with the ladies. During spring break of his freshman year, he met Josephine Sands, a young Spanish-American beauty who came from a world very different from his own. The couple began to date regularly, and the two soon fell in love. But sophomore year brought tough times when a shoulder injury sidelined 20-year-old Duke for the football season. Unable to play, he was cut from the team, and his scholarship was revoked. With the prospect of a free education now gone, Duke took a job at the William Fox Studios for $35 a week. Always a team player, Duke enjoyed the camaraderie of being part of a film crew and developed a reputation as a hard worker. He even attracted the attention of John Ford, one of Fox's star directors. Usually gruff and irritable to newcomers, Ford was disarmed by Duke's confident and easygoing manner, and the two struck up a friendship. The athletic prop boy was soon rewarded with occasional jobs as a stuntman, and his good looks brought him work as an extra and bit player. In 1929, his friend John Ford even gave him a speaking part as a midshipman alongside another USC football player, Ward Bond, in the Naval Academy drama Salute.
You ever been to the movies, mister?
Sure.
What do they do in the movies, mister?
What an exer.
He doesn't mean the audience. What do the actors do, mister?
We'll see what they do.
Duke also caught the attention of Fox director Raoul Walsh. Walsh thought that the wholesome young man might be perfect for the lead role in his upcoming widescreen western, The Big Trail. Though studio executives were hesitant to cast an inexperienced actor in Fox's biggest production of the year, Walsh was persuasive, and Duke was offered the starring role in The Big Trail for the modest salary of $75 a week. With his movie contract came a new All-American name, chosen for him by Winfield Sheehan, Fox's head of production. At 22, Duke Morrison became John Wayne. Marion Morrison was familiar with reinventing himself. The shy, skinny boy who became the strapping and popular Duke knew that his determination and charisma could take him places. But little did the 22-year-old know how far he would go, and just how difficult the journey would be. Filmed in a new 70mm format called Grandeur Pictures, The Big Trail was hailed as Fox's most ambitious picture of the year. But just as the movie completed production, America's economy was plunged into a deep depression.
The tremendous crowds which you see gathered outside the stock exchange are due to the greatest crash in the history of the New York Stock Exchange in market prices.
On October 29, 1929, the stock market crashed. Banks closed and millions lost their jobs and their life savings. When The Big Trail was released in 1930, only a handful of theaters could afford to play the widescreen film. The picture failed miserably at the box office and drew little public attention to its greenhorn star. Wayne's next two films didn't fare much better, and the 23-year-old former college football star was dropped from the Fox studio roster. Though off to a shaky start, Duke liked acting and was determined to make a living at it. But when his next job at Columbia Pictures lasted less than a year, John Wayne found his only form of employment in the cheap westerns produced by Hollywood's B-movie studios. While the roles on Hollywood's Poverty Row weren't demanding, the work was steady, and it kept Wayne out of the unemployment lines. Over the next few years, Wayne cut his teeth on these popular serial westerns. Appearing in close to 30 films, he modeled his characters after his childhood hero, Harry Carey. With each picture, Wayne honed his acting skills, capitalizing on his physical assets. While Wayne was establishing himself as a believable Western hero, he was also building a personal life. In 1933, Wayne asked his girlfriend of 7 years, Josie Sands, to be his wife. And on June 24th, the couple married at the home of actress Loretta Young, a Sands family friend. The next year, Duke and Josie celebrated the birth of a son, Michael. But the long hours and non-stop production of the Western serials left the actor tired and with little time for his new family. But even when there was a break from the 12-hour workdays and back-to-back productions, Wayne preferred the company of his buddies from the set. Evenings were spent carousing at the Hollywood Athletic Club with friends like movie cowboy George "Gabby" Hayes, stuntman Yakima Canutt, and actors Paul Fix and Ward Bond. Weekends often found Wayne aboard director John Ford's yacht, the Arroner. Duke shared Ford's love of drinking, card playing, and the sea. and the men would often take long cruises, escaping the pressures and attention of Hollywood. But Wayne's hard-drinking escapades and macho friends were worlds apart from his home life, and his marriage to his devoutly Catholic wife Josie soon began to show signs of trouble. By 1938, after churning out nearly 70 pictures in just 9 years, the actor had reached a critical plateau in his career. On a weekend trip in 1938, director John Ford asked Duke to read the script of his latest project, Stagecoach. By now, Ford was a powerful Academy Award-winning director, and it had been a decade since he and Duke had worked together. Though Stagecoach was a modestly budgeted Western, Wayne never expected his friend to offer him the role of the Ringo Kid. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. Ford had earned a reputation as a cruel taskmaster and was known for his harsh treatment of actors and unorthodox directing style. Even though Wayne brought 10 years of experience to his role, he was made to feel like an amateur. Released in 1939, Stagecoach was a critical and box office smash. Nominated for 7 Academy Awards, it was hailed as one of the top films of the year. Critics singled out Wayne's sensitive performance, and after 10 years in Hollywood, he was welcomed into the ranks of A-movie actors. Duke Morrison had worked long and hard to make something of John Wayne, and he was willing to protect his investment at any cost. The tremendous success of Stagecoach introduced John Wayne to an entirely new audience and gave him the breakthrough he had hoped for. Over the next 2 years, major studios cast him in a variety of featured roles, opposite famous leading ladies like Marlene Dietrich, and under the direction of distinguished filmmakers like Cecil B. DeMille. But as the B-movie veteran was stepping into his A-movie career, events far away from the comfort of Hollywood's sound stages were about to change the playing field dramatically. On December 7th, 1941, bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, and America declared war on Japan. Within hours of the news, young men and women, driven by a new sense of patriotism, signed up for the fight for freedom. But for John Wayne, the decision to enlist was not an easy one. By now, the actor's family had grown to include 3 more children: Mary Antonia, Patrick, and Melinda. Though work had been steady, Wayne was still earning a modest income by Hollywood standards. With little savings in the bank, the 34-year-old felt a greater responsibility to his family than to his country. Republic Pictures, who had Wayne under contract, was unwilling to lose their top moneymaker. The studio and Wayne knew that if he joined up, his most marketable years would be spent on the front line. As many of Hollywood's top stars signed up for the duration, Wayne filed for exemption from duty based on his age and family obligations. Major studios in desperate need of leading men were eager to take advantage of the actor's availability, casting him in a series of westerns and wartime adventure films. In 1942, Wayne's portrayal of a quietly heroic squadron leader, opposite Anna Lee in The Flying Tigers, struck a chord with wartime audiences and became one of the biggest hits of the year. John Wayne's believable portrayals of the single-minded American soldier who valiantly fights for justice and liberty captured moviegoers as no other performer had. John Wayne was becoming the idealized American hero. But Wayne's new celebrity and busy schedule only widened the growing rift between him and his wife Josie. The couple now seemed to have little in common but their children. Fan magazines continued to portray Wayne as the ideal husband and father. But by 1942, Duke had moved out of the house and into an apartment. Though Josie agreed to a separation, her strong Catholic beliefs prevented her from granting a divorce. With many of Hollywood's most eligible bachelors away at the front, Wayne had become a prime target for his co-stars' affections. Marlene Dietrich singled him out, making 3 pictures with the handsome leading man and initiating a long and passionate affair. Wayne was also linked romantically with a beautiful and engaging Mexican woman, Esperanza Chata Bauer, whom he had met during a business trip to Mexico. In 1943, Republic Pictures brought Chata to Los Angeles and put her under contract. By now, Wayne had fallen madly in love and did little to keep the affair a secret. Once a loner in Hollywood who enjoyed the company of only a few close friends, Wayne was now more visible on the nightclub circuit. He and Chata would spend evenings out drinking and mingling with Tinseltown's elite. The very public affair proved to be the final blow to Duke and Josie's marriage. In October of 1943, Josie began proceedings to end their 10-year union. In 1945, as America entered its fourth and final year in World War II, Wayne signed on for 2 guts and glory combat pictures. They were Expendable and Back to Bataan. By now, Wayne's macho stoicism and confident demeanor had solidly cemented his characters into the psyche of wartime audiences. Though Wayne had never served, to his growing number of fans, the soldiers he played were believable and inspirational. On August 15, 1945, the United States celebrated its victory over Japan, and World War II was over. Now firmly established as a bankable leading man, Wayne had won his own battle for acceptance in the industry big leagues. But as Hollywood's biggest stars returned home, 38-year-old John Wayne wondered if he could stay on top. On January 17, 1946, against the strong objections of his closest friends, John Wayne married Esperanza Chata Bauer. Though the couple had been dating for 3 years, Duke's friends feared that Chata's wild ways and questionable background made her a less than ideal wife. Duke, however, was deeply in love with the volatile actress and ready for marriage. But almost immediately, his thriving career would become a source of bitter conflict for the newlyweds. In 1946, Wayne made his producing debut for Republic Pictures with the modest western Angel and the Bad Man, a pacifist tale of a gunfighter reformed by a Quaker girl. Co-starring beside Wayne was Gail Russell, a beautiful but tormented young woman that the star took under his wing. Wayne's new bride, however, had little understanding for the friendship. Insanely jealous and certain that her husband was having an affair, Chata began drinking heavily and was prone to violent public outbursts. Wayne's life at home became a living hell. When Angel and the Bad Man opened to lukewarm reviews and weak box office returns, Wayne welcomed the chance to return solely to acting under the experienced direction of Howard Hawks in Red River. Only 39, Wayne was offered the challenging role of Tom Dunson, a stubborn, ruthless, yet sympathetic rancher much older than any character Duke had played before, and much more complex. Critics hailed Wayne's portrayal as authentic and gripping, and even John Ford expressed surprise at the depth of Wayne's performance. The authoritative figure Wayne played in Red River ushered in a new, more mature type of character. John Ford quickly cast him as a military leader in 2 cavalry films, Fort Apache and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. His sensitive and 3-dimensional performances in Red River and Ford's cavalry pictures firmly established Wayne as a serious actor and a big box office draw. Now able to lobby for prime roles, Wayne fought for and won the lead in the World War II drama The Sands of Iwo Jima. Duke immediately identified with the heroic Sergeant Stryker, a professional soldier who hid a soft heart behind a tough exterior.
Well, you can sit here and be tough if you want to, but I'm going out there and get that guy. And the only way you can stop me is to kill me.
That's just what I'll do.
With the U.S. at the height of its post-war power, Wayne Sergeant Stryker personified the ideal U.S. serviceman, a man with a confident willingness to take action and a fierce sense of duty. Wayne's outstanding portrayal of the patriotic Marine earned him an Oscar nomination in 1949 for Best Actor and sealed his image as the quintessential war hero. Though the Oscar went to Broderick Crawford for All the King's Men, Wayne's popularity was greater than ever. That year, he entered the top 10 of Box Office Magazine's most popular actors, rising to number 4 on the list. At the end of 1950, after 20 years in the movies, the Motion Picture Herald named John Wayne Hollywood's most popular star. The 43-year-old actor was beginning to live in the shadow of his screen image, an image that would take him places he could never have imagined. By 1950, with World War II long over, many Americans saw a new enemy in communism.
Our education is proceeding apace as to how Russia operates and how they got the atom bomb.
While the country was building bomb shelters and learning to duck and cover, Senator Joseph McCarthy and the House Un-American Activities Committee were conducting an all-out search for Communist Party members. Hollywood was on the front lines of the domestic Cold War. The Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals had joined the anti-communist fight in 1944. And in 1949, John Wayne moved from its executive board to serve as president. Duke's heroic image and strong pro-American views made him the natural choice to represent the organization.
For the past 10 years, the disciples of dictatorship have had the most to say and have said it louder and more often. All over the world, they pour their mouthings into the ears of the people, wearing them down their resistance by repeated hammerings of half-truths. Well, that's where our crusade for freedom comes in.
In 1951, Wayne, Ward Bond, and John Ford flew to Ireland to begin production on the old-fashioned romance, The Quiet Man. The cast included Wayne's Rio Grande co-star, Maureen O'Hara. The Quiet Man was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, winning 3. But Wayne's performance was not among the nominations. Friends speculated that the star's conservative politics were making him unpopular with his peers. But as far as moviegoers were concerned, Wayne was still an American hero. And his next 2 pictures, Flying Leathernecks and Operation Pacific, were box office hits. While still president of the Motion Picture Alliance, Wayne was becoming less active, preferring instead to fight the enemy and communism on the big screen where he felt more comfortable. When Warner Brothers offered Wayne a producing deal, the 44-year-old star chose Big Jim McClane, the story of 2 government investigators sent to Honolulu to smash a communist ring. Moviegoers responded favorably to the film's message, and the picture was an undeniable hit. But popularity polls and strong box office returns could not change the fact that Wayne's personal life was in shambles. Chotta's heavy drinking and increasingly erratic behavior had become an embarrassment to the very private Wayne, and the battles that once fueled their passion now exhausted him. In 1952, the couple separated after 6 stormy years together. Shortly thereafter, the 45-year-old movie star traveled to Peru on a working vacation, and there met a 23-year-old Peruvian actress, Pilar Palette. When Pilar came to Hollywood after filming, she and Wayne began a very secret affair, and in September of 1952, Wayne filed for divorce from Chotta. The trial became a public spectacle, and wild accusations of infidelity and abuse surfaced in the press, a calculated bid by Chotta to win sympathy and a large settlement. While Duke had long since separated from his first wife, he remained a loyal and loving father. He was especially worried about the effect the negative publicity would have on his teenage children. Throughout the proceedings, Pilar stood by Duke's side, offering a stability and serenity that had long been missing from his life. In November of 1954, Wayne's divorce was finally granted, and 2 days later, he and Pilar were wed. At 48, Wayne was still the nation's #1 star. It seemed as though nothing could tarnish his all-American image. And if John Wayne's first 25 years in front of the camera had made him a Hollywood giant, the next 25 would make him a legend. By the mid-1950s, America was changing. It was a time of television and rock and roll, a time of hot rods, hot blondes, and young rebels. It was also a time of heroes, and none walked taller than John Wayne. In 1955, Wayne was offered the lead in John Ford's dark western, The Searchers. It would be his first western in 3 years, and he was eager to get back in the saddle. Wayne starred as Ethan Edwards, a bigoted frontiersman on a vengeful quest to find his kidnapped niece. The unsympathetic role was a dramatic departure for the screen cowboy. The 48-year-old father of 4 had always encouraged his family to join him on location, and The Searchers, filmed in Utah's Monument Valley, was no exception. Even 15-year-old son Patrick played a small part in the film, and new wife Pilar was ever present. Released in 1956, The Searchers was a hit with audiences and critics alike. Its success proved that in an age of changing acting styles and audience tastes, John Wayne could still deliver what America craved. Later that same year, Duke and Pilar celebrated the birth of a daughter, Aisa. Wayne was ecstatic to have a second chance at fatherhood. It now seemed that Wayne was untouchable. He had been a box office star for over 15 years and was able to command over $500,000 per picture. But the star's next series of films did not achieve the success he had come to expect. Though critics blamed weak scripts and lackluster direction, Wayne was stunned when his movies began failing at the box office. To make matters worse, his busy career was increasingly at odds with the needs of his growing family. While wife Pilar had happily accompanied her husband on location in the past, she now had a toddler in tow, and life on the road was more difficult. But slowing down wasn't an option for Wayne. The 30-year screen veteran feared that diminishing box office returns meant his days as a leading man were numbered. Now 49, Wayne's age was beginning to show. A hairpiece hid his receding hairline, and the former athlete was finding it difficult to keep his weight down. When Duke flew to Japan to begin production on John Huston's The Barbarian and the Geisha, he was hoping for a hit. But almost from the start, Wayne found himself at odds with his director. Battles quickly erupted over Huston's improvisational working style, which Wayne felt was undisciplined and unprofessional. Critics lambasted Wayne's awkward portrayal of a 19th-century diplomat, and audiences stayed away. It was the actor's 4th failure in a row, and to add to his distress, a raging fire had ravaged his Encino home. Though Pilar and Aisa escaped unharmed, the event was traumatic for everyone concerned. Now more than ever, Wayne was torn between the demands of his career and his duties as a husband and father. But for Wayne, his work was his life. And when he was offered a chance to reunite with director Howard Hawks for Rio Bravo, he hoped a return to the Western would break his box office slump. Cast as the defiant sheriff John T. Chance, Wayne co-starred opposite Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, and newcomer Angie Dickinson. Audiences loved Wayne in the traditional role, and Rio Bravo was one of the most popular films of 1959. That same year, John Ford cast Wayne in The Horse Soldiers.
Make way for a rousing adventure story that relives history's most daring Give 'em Hell raid, and the 2 hellions who rode side by side to lead it.
But by now, the veteran director was past his prime, and Duke's confidence was shaken when the film fell short of everyone's expectations. Despite the success of The Searchers and Rio Bravo, Wayne had suffered 5 box office flops in as many years. His position as one of the highest paid and most powerful actors in Hollywood was in jeopardy. But the worst was yet to come. In the spring of 1959, Wayne received a surprising phone call from Saks Fifth Avenue in New York. Several recent bills had gone unpaid. Wayne was shocked by the news that he didn't have the cash to cover his purchases. At the age of 52, John Wayne was nearly broke. Already reeling from a string of box office flops, John Wayne was stunned to find that Boo Roos, his financial advisor of 17 years, had squandered his entire fortune in a series of bad investments. Financially strapped and with 2 families to support, the 52-year-old actor decided to risk everything and embark on a new phase of his career. Under the banner of his own company, Batjack, he would produce and direct a project that had been his dream for over 15 years, the epic story of the Alamo. Duke was determined to direct and produce the Alamo himself, and United Artists had agreed to invest in his project. But the studio had one condition. They insisted that he must act in the film as well and play the part of the story's hero, Davy Crockett. Wayne reluctantly agreed to their demand, and in the fall of 1959 began filming in the remote desert town of Brackettville, Texas. The huge cast included Richard Widmark and Wayne's children, Patrick and Aissa. Duke's son Michael worked as assistant producer, and Pilar stayed at her husband's side. On the first day of filming, the fledgling director had a Catholic priest bless the set, and from that moment on, Wayne led the cast and crew as if he were leading a real army. The stress of producing, directing, and acting left Wayne impatient and short-tempered as he tried to manage his multiple roles. To add to the tension, Wayne's old friend, director John Ford, showed up on the set, unannounced and uninvited. In an effort to avoid embarrassment and keep peace with Ford, Wayne gave the 4-time Academy Award winner the assignment to shoot second-unit action scenes, a gesture that would cost Duke an additional $250,000. But problems continued to plague the production. An actress was murdered by a jealous boyfriend, and the budget was rapidly exceeding its original $7.5 million. As pressure mounted, Wayne was smoking more than 100 cigarettes a day. In order to meet the escalating production costs, Duke put everything on the line, taking a second mortgage on his Encino home and even pledging his own salary toward the cause. When the Alamo was finally completed, the budget had swollen from $7.5 million to more than $12 million, the largest of any movie at that time. But when it was released in 1960, the film earned only $2 million. Critics were unimpressed with the patriotic tribute and singled out Duke's directing as sentimental and embarrassing. In a desperate bid to attract audiences, Wayne's publicist mounted an aggressive Oscar campaign. But the last-ditch effort only served to alienate Academy voters. Although the Alamo managed to earn 6 Oscar nominations, including one for Best Picture, the Academy snubbed Wayne's direction and acting, and the only award the film received was for Best Sound. Disappointed and embarrassed by the failure of his dream project and acutely aware of his mounting debts, Duke threw himself into the work and the roles that he knew best. But by now, the golden age of Hollywood Wayne had known and loved was coming to an end, and the actor's world was changing, both professionally and personally. In 1962, Wayne and director John Ford returned to the Old West with the remaining members of Ford's legendary stock company to film The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. To the surprise of those involved, the film opened to lukewarm reviews. Critics seemed unprepared for its somber tone. That summer, Duke and Ford made their final picture together, Donovan's Reef. It signaled the end of one of the most famous collaborations between actor and director in film history. For his next film, Wayne used the Ford model and created a family atmosphere that the beleaguered actor desperately needed. In McClintock, he returned to his popular Western character and was joined by his son, Patrick, Duke's son Michael took on the producing chores, while wife Pilar watched over 7-year-old Aisa, and the newest Wayne family member, John Ethan, born in 1962. McClintock became one of the most popular films of 1963, and for the first time in many years, Wayne's personal and professional life came together in perfect harmony. But just as things seemed to be getting back on track, the actor was hit once again with devastating news. In 1964, during a required physical for the film The Sons of Katie Elder, doctors discovered a suspicious spot on Wayne's lung. At the age of 57, John Wayne, who had rarely been sick, feared his 6-pack-a-day smoking habit had finally caught up with him. After consulting a doctor at the Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles, John Wayne was informed that he needed extensive surgery to remove a tumor in his left lung. At 57 years old, he was diagnosed with cancer. Not wanting to harm his image, Wayne's publicist and doctors assured the press that the screen hero's hospital visit was simply to repair an old football injury. In September of 1964, doctors were forced to remove Wayne's left lung over the course of 2 6-hour operations. The grueling surgery required the removal of a rib and left him with a 28-inch scar across his chest. 3 weeks later, as the severely weakened actor left the hospital, he was met by hordes of curious reporters. With the cameras flashing, Duke struggled to his feet and boldly walked out unassisted. For several months, Duke maintained the football injury story, but deceiving the public did not set well with him, and on December 29th, he decided to speak up. In an exclusive interview with a Hollywood columnist, Wayne revealed to the world that he had cancer. The star's candid admission was seen as heroic, and the country rallied around him. In America's eyes, even cancer couldn't stop John Wayne. As if to live up to his on-screen image, less than 4 months after his surgery and against doctors' orders, Wayne flew to Durango, Mexico to start production on The Sons of Katie Elder. Shot at an altitude of more than 6,000 feet, the script called for several difficult stunts, including an exhausting fight in the icy waters of the Rio Chico River. Despite the need for an oxygen mask between takes and the pain from the radical surgery, Wayne refused to use a double, preferring to do most of his own stunts as he had in the past. Now 59, Duke moved his family to Newport Beach, California. Set in conservative Orange County, just south of Los Angeles, the small oceanside community was an ideal location to spend time with his growing family, which now included a new daughter, Marisa, and 12 grandchildren. By 1966, America was changing. The liberal idealism of John Kennedy had turned into civil chaos. Race riots were erupting in cities across the country, and once peaceful civil rights marches had given way to bloody battles fought in front of America and the world. But the Duke remained as traditional as ever. An active Republican, he had campaigned for Goldwater in the presidential race of 1964, and in 1966 publicly supported Ronald Reagan in California's heated governor's race. When his conservative political beliefs continued to draw audiences, Republican officials discreetly approached him about running for political office. By the end of 1966, Lyndon Johnson had committed nearly 200,000 American soldiers to the conflict in Vietnam, polarizing the country and bringing Wayne to the forefront of the battle. After a 3-week USO tour, Wayne returned home determined to stand by his president and rally support for the troops overseas. In 1968, he directed and starred in The Green Berets, a heartfelt tribute to the boys serving in Vietnam. The Green Berets opened to tremendous business, earning $20 million, and demonstrating that John Wayne's values were not his alone. But Wayne's unbridled patriotism became an easy target for critics and anti-war protesters who picketed theaters across the country. Duke was determined to meet his detractors head-on, and in his next film, he would be offered the chance of a lifetime.
West 23rd Street in Yuma. No commitment, no results.
Exhausted by the critical onslaught brought on by the Green Berets, John Wayne left for Colorado in the fall of 1968 to film True Grit, the story of an over-the-hill frontier marshal hired by a young woman to track down her father's murderers. In the character of Rooster Cogburn, Wayne saw himself, a man of strong convictions, but an outsider in a world of changing values. When True Grit premiered in the summer of 1969, it was an enormous hit, earning John Wayne industry-wide acclaim and his second Oscar nomination for Best Actor.
The winner is John Wayne.
On April 7, 1970, after over 150 screen performances, the 62-year-old actor took home his first Academy Award, a fitting end to a tumultuous decade.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm no stranger to this podium. I've come up here and picked up these beautiful golden men before, but always for friends. One night I picked up two, one for Admiral John Ford, one for our beloved Gary Cooper. I was very clever and witty that night, the envy of even Bob Hope. But tonight I don't feel very clever, very witty. I feel very grateful, very humble.
By now, Wayne's screen persona had assumed mythic proportions. At 63, he completed 5 westerns back-to-back, including Rio Lobo and The Undefeated with Rock Hudson.
John Wayne, Rock Hudson, battling it out toe-to-toe and side-by-side.
What do you want? Your horses, your guns, and your gold. And you also have some women, senor.
You went out there to talk. Why did you have to shoot the man?
Conversation kind of dried up, ma'am.
After more than 40 years in front of the camera, John Wayne, the man, seemed larger than life. But privately, Duke still struggled with cash flow problems, and his constant location work was a strain on his family and his marriage. In 1973, after 20 years of marriage and 3 children, Duke and Pilar Wayne announced their separation. That same year, Wayne also faced losing his friend and teacher, John Ford. On August 30th, he visited the cancer-ravaged director for what would be the last time. The two shared brandy and memories and said their final goodbyes. John Ford passed away the following day. Now, more than ever, Wayne found solace in his work and in his frequent public appearances. At 65, the outspoken actor even continued to poke fun at his own image. In January 1974, the editors of Harvard University's Lampoon invited Duke to Cambridge, Massachusetts, to accept their infamous Brass Balls Award. By the end of the ceremony, the Harvard students who had come to jeer gave Duke a standing ovation.
Wait, do you look at yourself as the fulfillment of the American dream?
I don't look at myself any more than I have to, friend.
The Duke was now one of the most recognized and respected men in the world. Throughout the 1970s, he capitalized on his celebrity status in a variety of television appearances, comedy specials, and public service announcements.
So why don't all of you do yourselves a favor? Get a checkup. Talk someone you like into getting a checkup. Nag someone you love into getting a checkup. And while you're at it, send a check to the American Cancer Society, too.
In 1975, Wayne reprised the role that had earned him an Oscar. Hallelujah! He co-starred for the first time with Katharine Hepburn in Rooster Cogburn and the Lady.
Marshal Cogburn, you're in a sorry state.
No man alive likes to be called high-smelling and low down.
Eyeball to eyeball or shoulder to shoulder. They're the toughest pair in the West.
You got the gun, but you ain't got the know-how to use it.
Ain't that the way it works, Hawk?
In 1976, and for the first time in 25 years, John Wayne slipped out of the top 10 list of most popular actors. But Duke was now facing far more serious matters. At the age of 68, the legendary star's health had taken a turn for the worse, and he was about to turn his painful struggle into one of the most personal and harrowing performances of his career. In 1975, John Wayne began production on his 169th film, The Shootist. But by now he was suffering from a chronic, racking cough and had severe difficulty breathing. Though doctors could find nothing wrong, Wayne secretly feared that the cancer he had fought 10 years earlier had returned. The Shootist, co-starring Jimmy Stewart, Lauren Bacall, and Ron Howard, told the story of John Bernard Brooks, a dying gunfighter trying to make sense of his life. The film's theme mirrored Wayne's own fears about his declining health.
Why don't you just say it, flat out?
All right. You have a cancer. Advanced.
Can't you cut it out, Doc?
I'd have to gut you like a fish.
Near the end of filming, a bad case of influenza left Duke hospitalized for 2 weeks. When he returned to the set, Wayne faced one of the most difficult scenes of his career, a final showdown for the Western hero. Unfortunately, Wayne's health continued to deteriorate. In January of 1979, after complaining of severe stomach pain, his worst fears came true when he was diagnosed with stomach cancer. In April of 1979, Wayne made a moving appearance at the Academy Awards, presenting the Oscar for Best Picture. His physical condition was a shocking announcement that Duke was playing out his final scenes. As the Duke's health worsened, actress Elizabeth Taylor and his close friend and co-star Maureen O'Hara traveled to Washington, D.C. to make a heart-wrenching plea for a special medal to be awarded to Wayne for his contribution to America. Wayne was awarded the medal on May 26, 1979, his 72nd birthday. In June, Wayne entered UCLA Medical Center, suffering side effects from chemotherapy. While in the hospital, he was visited by friends and admirers. On June 11, 1979, with his 7 children at his side, 72-year-old John Wayne died of cancer. He was buried in Newport Beach, California, in an unmarked grave overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
Show visit us on the web at channel1yuma.com. Channel 1 Yuma presents 7 shows, 10 years of production. Human Life, with its in-depth reports. Somerton Story, where residents are the stars. Heroes of Yuma County, showcasing men and women of law enforcement. Police Animal Control, defending the rights of animals. Desert Vet ER, Life of Local Veterinarian. Big Star Auctions, best auctioneer in Yuma County. Behind the scenes of the Cocopah Speedway. Experience it like never before. 8 times a day. Only on Spectrum Channel 2. Watch online at channel1yuma.com.